Shalom. This morning I'd like to talk a little bit about the secret that nobody wants you to know about. And it's found in the New Testament in Matthew chapter 23, starting with verse 1. And listen to this very closely. Then Yeshua addressed the crowds and his Talmudim, or his students. The Torah teachers and the Parashim, he said, sit in the seat of Moshe. So whatever they tell you, take care to do it. Wow. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but I never heard it in all my years in Christianity. Although I was born Jewish, I was raised Christian. I never once heard any preacher ever preach on this subject. Why? Because they don't want you to know about it. Why? Because Yeshua was telling his followers that the Torah teachers, or the rabbis, and the Pharisees sit in the seat of Moses. Therefore, whatever they tell you to do, do it. Be careful to do it. What is the seat of Moses? The seat of Moses was the seat of authority, the seat of judgment. He was the anointed head of Israel at the very beginning. And his seat was the seat of government. So whenever anyone was sitting in the seat of Moses, they were the government for the people of Israel. And first century Judaism, was very important because the Romans were in control of Israel, and they were using the religious leaders of the time in order to control the people. They knew that if they kept the religious system intact, that they could control the people through the religious leadership. This was basically the seat of government of Israel in the first century of this era. But normally we are taught in Christianity that Jesus was there to start a new religion, which according to this, he was not. He was putting his followers under Jewish rabbinical authority, which goes against any teachings that he was trying to start a new religion. Why would he have put them under rabbinical authority if he was trying to start a new religion? He wouldn't have. Quite the contrary. He was trying to bring people into first century Judaism. But he had a problem with them. And he goes on to say, but don't do what they do, because they talk, but they don't do it. He was telling his followers, his Talmudim, or his students, to listen to what they say, but don't practice it the way they do, because they're hypocrites. This was a problem that he had with the Jewish leadership in the first century, that they were hypocrites. They would say one thing, and then they would turn around and do another. And he did not like that. He said, be sure and listen to them, but do it. Do what they tell you to do. Now, does this sound like somebody who did not believe that the Jews in the first century had the right idea? Of course not. He never would have told his followers to follow these people, to listen to them, to perform the works that they say to do, if he didn't believe that that was correct. His problem was not with their beliefs or with their writings. His problem was with their works, that their works were bad. Their teachings were good, but their works were bad. We have two ways of teaching, by word of mouth and by action, or by example. It takes both. It's hard to receive teachings from somebody that you know that does not practice what they preach. And in our society today, there's an old saying, do as I say and not as I do. But Yeshua didn't want, or Jesus didn't want us to be those kind of people. He wanted us to be people who listened to the word and performed the word. And he realized that the Jewish rabbis had very good ideas, very good teachings, if we would follow them. But unfortunately, the people in first century Judaism were not following them. They were doing what they wanted to do and making excuses for it. But he didn't want us to be those kind of people. And he goes on in the rest of chapter 23 to tell us exactly how hypocritical they were. And it's a good idea to read these, because he's saying these are the things he does not want us to be. On the other hand, he wants us to be people of the Word, keeping the Word on a daily basis, practicing it, showing by example that we are his followers. In another passage in the New Testament, he says, if you love me, you will keep my commandments or my instructions. So if we love him, then naturally we would follow this as one. This is one of the commandments that he gave us, to listen to the rabbis and to perform it. Christians don't want you to hear this. They do not want you to realize this, because then it would take away from them and it would cause people to go back to the synagogues where they belong. Because Jesus never wanted us to be separated from the Jewish people. Quite the contrary. He was bringing people in to the commonwealth of Israel, much as we should be doing today. And it would be a good idea if people knew about this. That's why I'm putting it on YouTube. It's because people need to realize that Jesus put his followers under rabbinical authority. There are people who will try to tell you that's not true, that that's not what this means, but it's unmistakable. If you read this whole chapter of Matthew 23, you'll find that their teachings are good, their actions were bad. So he expects us to be better, just like he said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 20, that unless our righteousness is greater than that of the scribes and Pharisees, we won't enter into the kingdom. How will our righteousness be greater? If we listen to the teachings and we do the work. That's how. If we listen to the teachings and we correctly do the work, then our righteousness will be greater. Because in first century Judaism, they were doing the opposite. They were listening to the words, but they were not performing the work. They were doing the opposite, which would make them hypocritical. And Jesus does not want his people to be hypocrites. He wants us to be true and faithful to the word of Hashem Baruch Hu, the Holy One of Israel. So today I would encourage you to read Matthew chapter 23 open-mindedly. Look at it. Take a good look at it. And see if you don't come to the same conclusion that I did. That Jesus wants us to be under rabbinical authority. That he wants us to do the work of the word as well as just listening to it. Have a good day. Shavua Tov.